You need to start making tutorials, bro. This is some masterpiece. Will there ever be a chance for us to enjoy some tutorials?
Do you make
tutorials on YouTube? Okay, fine. I get it. You guys really want tutorials. And what am I even supposed to do? There's too many effects, and the scenes are too complex, and it's not something that one tutorial can really... Fine, I'll do one right now. So basically, you want to connect this node to this node, and then set this setting, and then drag this over here. Okay, this isn't gonna work. If I'm gonna make tutorials, it's gonna happen my way. Okay, so I want to preface this by saying that this isn't going to be an actual full-on tutorial that guides you through every single step or process, but it's more of a project breakdown and overview of how I think, which is why this is aimed more towards intermediate motion graphics editors. And if you want to, you definitely can copy the settings. I tried to make sure the inspector panel is visible long enough on the screen so you can pause and copy the numbers if you need to, but I won't be explaining every single setting. I also separated everything into chapters on the video and in the description, so it's easy to see which scenes are being covered. There's also a few time lapses of my work, but I have text on screen that tells you when the time lapse ends, so you can skip directly to the explanations. Honestly, the best way to learn motion graphics is just by trying things out yourself. So while you can follow along, I think the best way is by cherry picking specific techniques or effects and then applying them to your own videos. So without further ado, let's jump right into it. So before I start anything, I always try to brainstorm a bunch of ideas. For this one, I actually had something in mind before I'm even going to start. And yeah, this website, I actually made this website myself. It's just a way that I wanted to storyboard on the audio waveform. Yeah, I can play the final result next to it while it's playing, but this is essentially what I'm thinking of. So if you guys want to read it, you can go ahead. So hopefully the final result I have is at least somewhat similar to what I have imagined previously. But I guess there's like a couple things. I wanted to use this audio because it's very fast and upbeat. So I know in the final result, I'm going to have a lot of glow spam and a lot of camera shake and things like that. So everything's going to be super fast paced. You're not really meant to read anything. I'm just going to have a bunch of these sorts of nodes that are on top of my previous edits because I want to make an edit of a tutorial. So I hope at least in my final video that I have what I wanted to do here. Given all of this, now I'm going to get into DaVinci Resolve and then start trying to make something. Now that we're here, I have to make a decision on what resolution and frame rate. My initial thought was 60 FPS, but I can't really envision it. Actually, yeah, I think 60 FPS might work fine. So we'll do that, and then, oh man, I do want to do this horizontal. Will that work? Horizontal, or like a square. It's definitely not gonna be portrait, but yeah, I'll do a horizontal, whatever. Yeah, all right, I guess that'll work. So I have actually a 2-monitor setup. It might be a bit difficult to show. Actually, you know what? Just for this project, I'll work in 1 monitor. First thing, I'm gonna drag in my audio, and then I already figured out what I wanted to do. So I wanted to do the first part, which is this drop area. And I'm going to cut it to this area, which is the second half of the drop part, because I don't think I have enough ideas to fill in this entire gap. Yeah, now that I have the audio, I'm just gonna try to cut it up. So I always give myself a lot of leeway in the beginning, just in case I want to maybe add more to the before and after, but it doesn't really matter, because if let's say you start here, or let's say you start here and you want to add more before it, you can just move everything. Okay, so this is where the buildups begin. So here, I'm just gonna put an adjustment clip right here and name it intro. And then because my idea is that this shape is going to be throughout the entire thing and then eventually breaks apart all the way to here, I might have to use this one adjustment clip throughout the entire thing. Okay, so I just spent a bit of time gathering my old videos, and I'm just gonna unlink the clips, move it over, then figure out what I want to keep. So it doesn't really matter, I think. I just need to be on the beat. And then I counted earlier that there are 15 total beats in just this segment. So I need 15 different clips out of these couple videos. There's this one, which is a couple probably. So now I have a bunch of random clips from my old edits. Ooh, actually one thing is I want to make sure all of these have the same, like these are cut off on the side. So I'm just going to add one of the most used effects from the presets is the blanking fill. So all it does is just add a blur onto the side. You can easily fill up the blank space that's not there. So fade it a little bit. And then I'm gonna do Control C and then paste into here with Alt V. So it pastes the effect itself. And then I'm just gonna go through and double check all of these have the same resolution. So now I'm gonna go into Fusion here. And then what I'm gonna do is, this is media in, which is just all the clips I already gathered. And then I'll make a 3D scene. So how I make 3D scenes in here is when you open Fusion, there's usually these things on the side. These are all the 3D elements. I haven't touched this, so this should be on everyone's Fusion page. I just click the merge 3D camera and then render. And then this render with another merge node. And then once I have this, I can create a 3D scene just like so. And then there you go. It's really simple like that. And then I move the camera out the way. And then because I want this intro or this part to be inside the 3D scene, instead of connecting to the merge, I'm going to connect it to a 3D image plane and then move it into here. So now in this 3D environment, there is the image plane right here. And then, oh yeah, because I no longer have a background node, the output's going to be empty. So I have to add just a random background node for now. And now when you play it, because the camera is this far away, it will be exactly what this 3D camera is seeing. So I'm just going to scale it up a little bit. So the moment you use 3D stuff, it's gonna start getting very laggy. I like doing playback resolution quarter, or everything is now rendered at quarter resolution. And because I set my timeline at 4K, it's gonna be much easier on the computer. So now I keyframed it at the beginning here. So now the Z is at where it is perfectly around the edges. I'm gonna go to the marker I set previously here, and then probably back it up a little bit. Maybe here, yeah, that looks fine. And then I'm looking at this right now and I feel like, okay, this looks really weird. That is just scaling out like this. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to select all the keyframes in the spline editor. I'm going to do Shift S to curve it like this, press T, lock it, and then do this. This way, all of the handles are now moved in. You can do this for easy movement instead of just dragging this itself. And then I'm going to select this one, do Shift A. And then I think now it'll go out more slowly, but then at the end of it, it just stops abruptly, but that's because I plan on adding something later and I'm just going to change it later. But for now, I think this is fine. Now I want to add some more flair to it, like old cassette tape. Let's see. Okay, so this is sort of what I had in mind, something like this. I mean, I can do this. I wanted to make it also look sort of like gears. So I'm just gonna start doing random things and see what happens. Okay, so for this part, I was starting to make the film tapes with shape 3Ds, but as you see here, it doesn't really look too great. So I ended up scrapping it and then going with the S ellipses and the other shape tools. So after using all these polygons to mask out different parts of the ellipse, I used a tool from Reactor to get the reflective gold material. And I keyframed a little bit so that it spins on every beat drop. The next part was adding a backplate for the video sequence that we made earlier. This is just a simple rectangle that I added with the same gold material. And then finally is this background, which is just a bunch of shapes merged together and then blurred. Just to recap a bit on what I've done so far, I was trying to make these gear things. So it's been a month since I last started. I got super demotivated, but I was trying to do these, not gear things, but what's it called? Tape player, like these ones. And I just came up with my own design. Anyway, it's an ellipse. So these are S ellipses. I believe they're just shape paths, but it's built in DaVinci Resolve. So I feel like it's better to work with. And also I use them with the extrude. I'll show you later, but it's essentially an ellipse here. It starts with an ellipse and then I Boolean it with another ellipse. and this one, the smaller one, has a subtract operation. And then I boolean it with another polygon, which I drew. This is an S polygon. You can just draw whatever you want. And I duplicate it 4 times and I boolean it onto there to make this ninja star thing. And then I merge it with the outer ring, which is just this booleaned. Oh, I could have just done a non-solid the border width like this, but whatever, I forgot. And then I merged it onto here, and I boolean it one more time with a smaller ellipse. This is a really small S ellipse, and then I duplicate it, so there's 12 of them in total, and I boolean it there. So now it looks somewhat similar to these things, but I guess, I don't know, a bit more unique with these angled holes here. And then there's a cool thing to put it into 3D. So maybe you remembered, I imagined something like this for the tape player, like behind it, and then there's a reflection, so it all has to be in 3D. So in order to make something like this, all I did was extrude it. Once you drag it, it becomes a 3D object you can use, and then you can extrude it to however long you want. And then there's an input for material input. I used KAS materials, which is, I believe, from Reactor. Yeah, Kick-Ass shaders. Once you get Reactor, there's a bunch of tutorials on how to get Reactor, but if you have it, download KAS Kick-Ass shaders, and then you can add in whatever you want because it's already implemented. So this one is just St. Nicholas Church. I liked it because it just had the reflection. It'll just give you all of this together, but I added a small blur so it's not too obvious or too sharp, and then you can just put it directly into the extrude. I duplicated it one time on the other side by flipping it around. It was like this before, and I just rotated it on the y-axis so it would mirror on the other side, and then I transformed it to where I want it to be. That's these tape players. And then for my keyframing, all I did was I set up a small keyframe like this so that it rotates fast and then slows down and then speeds up again. And then what I do is I select all of it, right click, set loop relative. On every beat, it would do the same thing relative to the past angle. And then at the end of it, I just end it off. I'm not sure why there's this jump. I had to keep it there to have the be continuous. Or the screen or the border around this, I did the same thing with the shape. It's just a rectangle behind. Put in the reflection material and then I have a second one routed to this because I wanted to rotate it while it was moving, so it looks like a glowing rotating outline. Then the background, which I just made, was just a shape, different colors, all sorts of colors. And I transformed it to keep rotating around, and then a massive blur of 600. And then I'm directly merged it into the black background. So right now it looks pretty goofy. Usually it's always better once you add the effects on top, because the more effects you add, the less the viewer can see on what's actually going on. So if you sort of just overload everything, it won't be as noticeable that this is just this. So I think my next step I want to try to do is maybe add some more flare outside, and then start working on the reflection, eventually add global effects. So this is all still in one adjustment layer. Just a bit of an update right now. So everything that's going into this merge right here is the tape player and the screen. And then also I downloaded a waveform, yeah, right here, music vid. I just went over here, yeah, went to MonsterCat bar visualizer. It's free download, so that was pretty cool. I didn't want to mess with audio visualizer from Reactor because it didn't seem to work properly. I tried to customize it more, but it didn't work. So I just have this. We have the audio visualizer, and then we have the keyer that keys out the black. We have a crop, transform back to the middle, and then duplicate it down, made it glow, a slight blur because I wanted to seem out of focus, and then color corrector to match the gold color on the cogwheels. And then we have a plane that puts it all the way back there and far away. And then that merges into here along with all these other elements. So I wanted to split apart the actual front image right here because I wanted to add light rays eventually to it. But when I added light rays with this montage in front of it, it didn't look great. So I moved everything into its own separate 3D space. The second thing I did is I actually made a reflection. So my original idea was here before. It was a reflection. I just brute forced it. I duplicate down with just a, let me see, scale of in the Y axis, -1. So it would flip it down upside down like this. And then I merged in a long plane, a shape that's this KAS glass dirty. I don't think it makes much of a difference because even without it, yeah, you can't really see it, but that's just a really big plane on the bottom. and I merged it in like this so that when it renders out, it looks somewhat like a reflection. It's still not great. Let me add this back. It's there. It's good enough. So that's what it looks like with this. So this final merge comes into this with the light rays, and then adding the second 3D space with only the montage, and now it looks like that. So I think this is a bit better because now the background isn't just fully black, and then when you add all the global effects on top of it, all this is right now edge detect. Very little edge detect. Is I think the width, yeah, the width isn't much. The brightness is really low, so it's very light edge detect. Chromatic aberration from Universe, I believe. I don't know. Yeah, this is from Universe. There are ways to have Universe plugins, but you'll have to search that up. But I added chromatic aberration. It's not too much. You can go without it if you want. It's a little bit aberration. And then vignette on the outside, and then a glow. And then I wanted to add one more thing, actually. I wanted a dent. So usually, or why I want this is because I think it'd look okay if I have like a dent like this, maybe? I don't know. Maybe that's too much. Let's try a little bit less. Dent. Wait, let me see the other dent. I actually don't know what's the difference between these two. Let me just try this one. Dent 2. So this is without, this is with. I think it's okay. Maybe just a little bit. And then usually I actually add a dehaze on top. Okay, that is way too much. Maybe I was trying to mess around with dehazing the yellow so it has like some sort of contrast. Maybe like that. So without, with. I think that looks cool. And then I might add one more glow, like another light ray on top of everything. Okay, I think that looks fine. Now this is original without all the effects. Adding the effects, it looks like this. This is just destroying my computer though. Yeah, it is not able to render this well. I still need to add a bit more flare on the outside. I actually didn't do it the first cut I did. I don't know. I'll add something here, I guess, which is just, I was thinking of just some random shapes. Like, I don't know, maybe I could sneak my logo in there or something. But I want to go back into the merge, take this shape somewhere here, cube. Okay, so the reflection is sort of off because I had to copy over the shape here in order for it to look correct with this. So I don't know. What do I do here? How do I make this better? Let me see. What is this rendering exactly? Maybe I can, instead of doing this, maybe I can mask the bottom part so just a bit darker. Instead of putting it directly in, I can, oh, this is gonna look ugly in the nodes at least. So I have to make another instance with Control-Shift-V. Then I'll have another instance of this, and then I want another instance of the render, and then have it mask the merged output. So let's see, something like this. Top. Okay, I have no idea what's going on. Okay, maybe can I make this a bit, oh, I can't even change the texture. Okay, you know what? I'm just not gonna use this. Okay, so I want to hide the reflection a bit more. So I'm gonna make it 0.6 or 0.78. And then I don't wanna mask that. I wanna mask a rectangle merge on the entire thing. I masked that to make it darker. Okay, that's what I wanted. Oh, actually I can't mask it there. I have to mask it here. Is that correct? No? Why is it still off? I have this. Wait, what if I do this? Okay, so I just had it reversed. I needed to use this rendered output, mask it with this rendered plane. Originally, or I copied the 3D space again to make another plane with the same camera, and then I have it rendered like this. So then it would back up slowly, and then I put this back into the rendered output of the reflection plane. So this part masks this, and then I merge it back. So then it has an overlay only on this part. And then I can do this. Okay. This is probably the worst solution possible, but whatever. If it works, it works. So back to making the random objects. Okay, the scene is getting too laggy to add too much. I just added 3 squares randomly, just so it's a bit less empty. Now I have to work on the transition here. So I want this part, I don't know. I'm just gonna mess around and see what happens. So for the part going into the pre-drop, the first thing I did was just animate my logo going in and back out on the Z-axis. And then the transition itself is just the CRT effect with the 3D camera moving out and then back in. And then I also added some speed lines here just to amplify the effect. And then for the pre-drop itself, I originally had the idea of the camera revolving around the scene while it was breaking apart, but I eventually ended up with just following Peach's shatter tutorial and then using the same thing there. I just added a lot of things. So I think the first thing is the transition part. So this intro clip is just this one extended over, but I cut it here because I wanted to remove some elements to make it a bit lighter on my computer. But it's the same thing as before. The transition part that I actually care about, I guess I can first show this. So when it first comes in, I have another clip here, which is just another transition where I flash certain elements. I really like using the inverts, edge detect, and then just a white background. So if you go through frame by frame here, it first inverts and then edge detect and then white background and then invert. So that's just what I do for, I guess, like a glitchy flash. And then it transitions quickly into this, where in this transition, it has the main thing is the dent. So it dents like this, and then it undents. And this keyframe looks like this. So it first goes down really fast, and it comes back up really fast. And then the next thing I added was the fast noise speed effect. So I originally had, I was trying to do it manually like this, but it just did not look good. Eventually figured out that, wait, I could use fast noise with this in a coordinate space. So these two nodes together can make circular, or this one especially can make circular stuff. So first, this fast noise is just these settings over here with the scale turned up really high like this. And then I have a coordinate space. All I do is just do polar to rectangular. So originally it's like this. And then if you just set it to this, it turns into this. So it's like polar coordinate. And then I'm masking ellipse with the high soft edge over here. So it creates like the circular thing just so you can see better in the middle. Because if you didn't have it, it'll be blocking the screen. And then what did I do here? Originally, I have this. So this is a custom macro I made. Let me see, I can show here. But in my logo, I made a custom macro. So if I change it to group operator here and then paste it in, and this is what it looks like. So it's essentially just a 3D space with just a cube, gradient material on it. And then I added it with a light and a camera. So then once I render it out, there's all these controls I could use, and it's just much easier to turn. I didn't want to change all that, so I just added a brightness thing, so it makes it a little bit brighter on the scene, and then merged it together, added a camera shake. This camera shake is also from the Universe plugin, but you can definitely just do it with the normal camera shake. This one's the one I usually use. I think to make the same effect as what I have here, all you have to do is just change the speed high, motion low, then maybe the PTR speed up a bit, and then it should have similar effect. So let's see. Yeah, so something like that. This logo, what I keyframed it was, it comes out and then back down, and then it reverses what the dent looks like, so it makes a nice contrasting effect. So that's this part, and then with the global effects on top, it looks much more tinted and much more contrasted. And then finally with the final transition on top, which is, it's just an analog damage. So I messed around with a lot of controls here to make it look like what I want it to, but essentially the only things I keyframed was I have a CRT framing here with the image aspect. So I first make it go out and come back in, and then same with the overscan. It's just, it looks like some zoom. I'm not really sure exactly what it does, but it's just some zoom. I just do this and then go back up. So these are the spline curve, and then the rest of it I just messed around with, I don't know, some other settings. You can do whatever you want. That's only the buildup. So I have this other section of the buildup, and this is where the drop is. So I still have this much buildup left. My original plan was to do something like this, where I had the main video on the side and all the elements pop out in front or behind it, and then it flashes on all these tracking nodes. I was trying to do it, but this part, it was really difficult to make it look good while showing the camera on its side. I think maybe because I'm missing, I don't know, it just looked really weird. So I pivoted and I started doing this. I took the same nodes from my last project. There's a tutorial on that by Peach. It's a shatter tutorial. I also link it. Basically what I have right now is just this, where all the elements do pop out in the front. So it's the background, some elements, the shatter parts, the text. So that's this part over here, which is really simple. It just come out on the keyframes, and then the keyframes just look like this. It just comes out really fast and then slows down. What I added was the same section. So this is what Peach's tutorial will get you. The entry point is here, and then the exit point is here. So as you see, it will have the shatter. But what I did was I chained it again. I just added it on top of itself. So now this is the exit point. Now there's way more shatter, and his tutorial will get you this part, and then you can just repeat it or copy and paste into the second part. Afterwards, I rendered it out, and then I made the keyframes for this part go out, begin fast, slow down, and then exit fast. So then once it hits this beat right here, which I marked it over here with this marker, once it hits it, it crashes out with a lot of extra shatters. After a bit, it slowly goes crazier and crazier. It looks like this. I noticed this part is a bit fast, and even right now it's not playing at full 60 FPS. It's playing at 20 or so, or basically half of it. This looks fine right now because it's in 60 FPS. It's gonna be so much faster. I'm planning on extending this to the actual beat drop and then using this entire scene for the pre-drop and then completely scrapping this idea of what I had here. But I'll still have this part. So yeah, that's what I'm gonna try to do next. For this segment, I mainly just did a lot of cleaning up on the keyframes because after extending it, everything was messed up. I was also working on adding the speed lines back and the more global effects. And then I also wanted to try out this new MIDI thing that I was following a tutorial for. I think it looks pretty cool, but I'll definitely explain more on that in a bit. Okay, so I just finished adding the effects over here. So now this part is now fully extended till the end of the drop. Along with that, I also added these bars in the background. So they're meant to be waveforms. I know it's not really visible, though I was following a tutorial and I'll also link it in the description. This is just a rectangle. I duplicated it 128 times to form a circle with the angle -2.82 on the Y rotation. So it makes a full circle. And then I keyframe the merge, the transforms, and I merge the camera in. Finally, this is the output. To make these move with the music, the tutorial, it told me for the scale of the Y, you can modify with MIDI extractor. And then you can use a converted MIDI file, which the tutorial also has a link for. But you can convert your audio file into a MIDI file and then move it in here, and then it'll animate with the music. So originally I have the waveform adjustment clip through this entire area, but I cut it up in the middle and then move one down here. If you look at my keyframes here, and then let me just select all here. I made it way past this adjustment clip itself. So this is the first clip, it goes up to here. And then I cut it in the middle so that it finishes all the way over there. It's not really visible, but you can see it starting to rotate over here. So then when it cuts the next part, it's sort of like a match cut where the waveform is now down here and it rotates around. This was actually pretty simple to follow. It's basically just the MIDI extractor, but that's it. I also added the background over here, which is the same background inside this section. Inside the transition, this speed lines part, which is with the fast noise and the coordinate space, I also copied it over into the background here. And again, it's not too visible, but it gives it a nice flare right here. You can see like the speed lines on the outside, and then it's animated, so it gives it a more chaotic effect, which is what I'm going for. The next part I wanted to add was the camera trackers. This part, you're barely gonna see it in the actual video, but I wanted to add something like this so that on every single beat over here, it would show something on the screen, and it has no one's going to be able to read this, but it has a text of the node that it wants to represent. So like, oh, look, there's a transform 3D in the background. So it's sort of like a behind the scenes tracer effect. So this is what I was trying to replicate, something like this. Everything is tracked to the background and then it's all connected. So I wanted to do something similar here, and I will show you what that looks like. So this is super laggy because the way I do it is sort of dumb, but essentially how it works is there's a camera tracker here. In this camera tracker, all you have to do is just click auto track on a scene and then click solve if it has enough points, and then click export. And then once you click export, it generates these, not this one, these 5 nodes. So the main thing is this point cloud over here. So if I go into here, this is what the point cloud looks like. There's just a bunch of different positions and a bunch of different things called auto and then a number. So these are actually locators. So if I go into this point cloud right here, and then let's just select some random one, like this one. I can right click point cloud and then notice it's auto 24 and create a locator. And then now this locator is created. And then this, I'm not exactly sure what this does, but it helps, it moves the objects where it should be if you're merging it into 2D. So all I have to do is just put it into here. So now this exact locator is now helping it figure out exactly where it is. So this has a translation that's always fixed here, but in the 2D plane, it will be moving according to this locator. So that's what this is. It's just a bunch of different locators I scripted so that it would generate all of them at once. And then a bunch of different rectangles, polylines, and text. So all of these are just here. Let's say I have this auto 24. I can just right click the center, connect with auto 24 position, and then it will be tracked to wherever that exact point was. This entire group here is just all of these rectangles all going into each other as mass, and then eventually coming out with these rectangles. And then same with the polylines and same for the text. The polylines are just, there's an XY point, and then it connects to two different random locators. And the text is the same thing. In the center here, I connected to two random ones, and then in the offset, I just offset it a little bit so it goes up to the corner. And yeah, that's about how I made this part, but I probably won't be sharing the script because it's just super convoluted and very, very buggy. And then the entire thing was made with pretty much ChatGPT. It gets the job done. Because it's super laggy, I had to turn to a compound clip like this. And then in the main timeline, I've rendered in place, and then now you can play it without any lag. And then now with everything added on top of it, it looks something like this. So you can almost barely see it, but it's just there for extra flair, I guess. I might make it more visible, but I'm not sure. Yeah, you can't even you can't even notice them. I just updated it so the boxes are a bit bigger. Yeah, I just upped it from 0.02 to 0.04 and made the widths bigger. Nothing else much changed. I just remade every single one of them. And also I updated the font a bit. I just got one off of Google Fonts. Where is it? This one. I just searched up the first, what did I even search? Oh, terminal font, Google font. Yeah, so this is what I used. And yeah, I think it looks pretty good now. I also got rid of the fill in the rectangle, so then now each rectangle mask no longer has a solid. So yeah, I think it's pretty good, and you can actually see it now. It'd still be really fast, so no one's gonna be able to read it, but that's fine. So that wraps up pretty much the entirety of the intro, and now I have the rest of the song to go. So because this is supposed to be like an edit of a tutorial, I wanted to have this clip and then actually show you exactly what nodes were used, maybe how the spline graphs work. So once it crashes in, I wanted to do some like camera movements, but while I do the camera movements, there's going to be elements in the corners maybe, and then at the bottom, and then maybe it shows just like a bit of the node graph, and the node graph will also be animated, maybe some spline graph top right, and then my transition from this part into the next part. This part, I'm planning on some ellipse following a path, and it's gonna come up like this and then crash down. And as it crashes down, it follows the camera downwards, and then it'll make, I don't know, some shapes or something. But yeah, that's gonna be the next part. So this part was just messing around with the actual movement of the screen, and there's no special camera this time. It's all just in a transform node. And then I also worked on creating a mock node, like as you see here, with a bunch of different shape nodes. And then I converted it into a macro so that I can copy and paste it around. And I moved them around with DVE nodes. So I just only have 5 of them right now. All of them show up and then bounce around to the beat, basically. But I feel like this is a bit too cringe. Yeah, I feel like, I don't know. Let me look it up further away. I don't know I can't really explain exactly what's wrong, but it doesn't look right to me. I'm gonna change it a bit. So I wanted to move most of the nodes down to the bottom and then have these sort of glowing squares overlaying on top. You'll see what I mean when I add them. Maybe also some sort of inspector with sliders, maybe some graph on the right side, just to have some more things on the screen. Because I feel like maybe these independently are just too, I think they stand out too much. So I'm gonna try to change it into something where it's just like a bunch of random high-tech whatever screens on the side, and then the thing in the center is the primary focus. Yeah, I'm gonna mess around with that and see where it goes. Okay, so these are the glow squares I was talking about. So this media in is just what I had originally when it comes in, and then this merge just merges in these two lines that I'll talk about in a bit. So the first merge that comes over here is just a blur, a chromatic aberration, a glow, and a flicker. And then this gets merged along with a rectangle mask. And this rectangle mask is just a square. And I added some keyframes. So if you look on the right side in the inspector, all of these keyframe spans are just making it look glitchy to have it suddenly have bigger scale, small scale, wider, fill the entire screen. This is all just random movements. There's not really any clear pattern to them. I just randomly chose where it would go, but that's this rectangle here. And then this glitch effect is from Universe. There is, I believe, a built-in glitch from DaVinci Resolve. Yeah, called Digital Glitch. If I drag this into here and see what happens, yeah, it basically has the same thing with the random glitches. So you can mess around with this. It will also have a similar glitch effect, but I have this node that masks this original merge. As we saw here, we have these few nodes that create this new glowing effect. And then we have this merge so that now there's this glowing square here. And then we want to merge it with another one with an instance of this rectangle, but all I did was de-instance the border width and solid. So for any single instance value, you can right click, like de-instance, and then it will be disconnected from the original. Now that it's disconnected, I can unselect the solid, make the border width higher, and have this mask into this merge so it has a slight border effect. For this part here, it's actually really simple. It has three rectangle shapes. So one rectangle here, another one here, and another one here. And then this creates this type of shape. What this boolean does is on the subtract operation, it takes this rectangle and then subtracts it with this new shape that we made. And then the final output is a sort of like a corner pin shape over here. And then we have a transform that just moves it up and then around all over the place. But this is what the keyframes look like. It just goes up, glitches around, and then goes back up. This angle, the way it's constantly moving upwards is gradient extrapolation. So usually it would be like this, but if gradient extrapolation is on, it would constantly go wherever the last keyframe finished. And then there's this sapphire time displacement. All it does is it just makes the animation lag behind a couple frames. This is barely noticeable in my opinion, so it's definitely not needed. And then there's a merge with the blend animated so that it flickers on and off. We have the same setup here with these other shapes. So it creates this sort of shape with three rectangles, and then it has a subtract boolean with this outer bigger rectangle over here to create this larger corner pin shape. And then it goes into two different transforms. So one of them is down here where it goes up, right, and down. Another one goes down and to the left. These are also just complete random movements. But I merged them together. I have a stop motion node that has the frame repeat on 5. So instead of 60 FPS, it's now at 12 FPS, and then merged again with the flickering blends. So that gives it this output. And oh right, so for the polygons, these are the same thing as what I showed before in the camera tracker tracer. It's just a polygon with the XY path. So if I have a polygon here, I draw two lines, I select them with Shift A, and then I can right click, go to polyline, publish the XY path. And then now these points show up. And then you can connect these points to any of the paths already made. So this polygon is just connected to this rectangle path and this transform path. And then this polygon is also connected to this one and then the other transform path. So it's actually really simple and just creates these polylines to just follow all the other elements around. Yeah, low-key, this panel thing didn't really look great. It looks very out of place, but I think it's fine to leave it in. It goes by pretty fast too. It's in the corner. I think this is good enough for the scene. Now, the next part I want to do is have some particle or some shape that comes in and crashes downwards. As it crashes down, there's going to be like speed lines left and right of it, and then maybe some different variations of the polylines that it follows. Basically, it's going to look like the camera moves downwards. I think the first thing I want to do though is actually have it start before this section. So I'm gonna call this next. In this section here, I need it to come in and then leave. So I'll just add it right under the global effects and also extend this all the way over here. Get rid of all this stuff because we don't need it. So here's when I want it to just maybe come in from the right side and then crash down. A really easy way is just have a polyline and then have a merge node and then connect it directly here. And then you can now make whatever you want over here. So let's say I want to have it come down like this and then come up here and then crash down. So something like this, and then you can make it a bit nicer with these Bezier curves. This can be a bit bigger. And then we want the border width to be a bit higher, length to be small. And then the position is where you keyframe it along the path. The beginning, it will be 0 position. And then once it crashes down, it will be here, I guess. And then it will cut to the next scene anyway. So this is super fast right now, but I want to come in fast first and then slow down in the middle and then go down fast again. So I will do this, ease it in a lot, go fast. See if I can even save it here, because it might just be way too fast for even trying to have it here. So I'm gonna extend it a little bit more and just have more time coming in. Because like, even if it's not hitting the beat, it'll probably be fine. Then that means I can move this position all the way back a bit more. Something like, okay, I think this is okay. So then I'm just using a duplicate node over here. Have a time offset. Mine is -0.16. Do whatever you want to make it as smooth as possible between frames, because if you do too much, then you can obviously see the circles. Another option, I think, is just increasing the length. I could have just done that. All right. Okay, just adding a light right here so it shines a bit better. I think I also want to add a glow here. Maybe I want up here to peak the glow. So before this, I'll be like, then I'll just do this. I also want to make sure everything in this scene also moves down along with it. It'll go up fast, 0.5, and then ease it again. Okay, maybe too much easing. Now is the next part. So I want to make, I think I might copy the same thing I had my previous thing over here. So if you remember this background right here, this speed line looking thing, but I used it with coordinate space. If I don't have the coordinate space, might be able to make it look like it's vertically going fast. So I'm just gonna come over here and try to do the exact same thing. See how it works. So I need fast noise. Yeah, something like this already looks good enough. Maybe less detail. Okay, I also want to be darker. Okay, this already looks better. Okay, then I want to have some sort of dent on. Make it, oh, actually not dent. I want lens distortion to have it like, okay. Ooh, maybe I can keyframe this. Oh, that might be a good idea. Come from the top and it's gonna go down to the bottom. Okay, I think that's fine. I need to change this transform here because it doesn't sell the fact that it's going really fast down. I want to do way more here, and then the edges are mirroring now. So what's going to happen is I want to go up a lot. When the transition actually happens, it scrolls by multiple. Maybe I also add some motion blur if I can here. And it'd be more. Okay, and then now I need this to be colored. I don't know how I would do this, but I want to add some maybe rainbow coloring. How should I do this? I know I can add a color corrector node on top of all of this, change the colors around. I want to do this, and over here maybe I like tinted a rainbow or something. I think it's fine for now. I'll change it later. The next part I want to add is the speeding things going down. So I do need the particles again, so I need more polygons, but multi-merge. Okay, I'll try it with a ball for now, and then see later if I want to change that into something like an arrow or something. This one, we have border width, length move down, position. We want a keyframe position, and then at the end of it, it'll be down. Then we want to sell it by doing this. I want to copy the same settings basically. So I want to have the glow, duplicate, and then the border width over here. Border width, and then also the glow and duplicate. Okay, I need way more things here. Let me try something. I need an S grid, S rectangle to go into here. S render and export it here. Okay, let's see if I can do this well. Because what I'm thinking is along with this curved background, I also want the grid in the background as well. And then I make this much bigger to like 40 if I can. Then I'm actually gonna move this down to the background node because then I can merge it into here. So I have a merge, then along with the distort, I can do this. But except now I need to have some sort of transform down, but while it's transforming, I also want to mirror it, so the same effect. Whenever I move it, it'll keep basically creating more boxes. So I wanted to do this and then go up really fast. I don't know, something about this looks off, but I can't really tell exactly. Let me think. I think the easiest thing might be to actually make this into a 3D environment, because if I have the grid in 3D, then I can just move a camera down instead of using these transform things. Yeah, I'm gonna move it back over. I'm gonna have it here, this, instead of rendering it, I want to extrude it. Basically turn it into a shape in 3D. And then instead of this polygon, I'm just gonna make a 3D setup real quick. And then this grid can be, the X can be much less now. And this has to be insane, so 100. Okay, we can try this. Maybe I might get rid of the grid eventually. Just be 200 to be safe. And then I'll move the camera. I'm just gonna test something out. So I'm gonna start here. This is down. It should be all the way over here. Be something like this. In the middle, it's like, okay. Okay, something like that, I think. And then if I eventually do motion blur this, okay. Slowly coming together. I think this part's pretty good. It's pretty smooth as well. And it gives an easy transition to the next part too. Basically, this first ball part gives a good match cut to the next scene, which is just these things that are supposed to mimic this graph over here. But of course, it's not gonna be completely accurate to anything. I just did random lines and shapes and then made it work. But essentially, to make it look realistic, I ended up just doing a camera 3D. And then the camera, it moves down along with these other polygons that I'll show you in a bit, but the camera moves down, which way more convincing than just like translating up. For the actual line part, it's, if I select this, yeah, it's way bigger than this canvas. So the first main grid is just a small rectangle, and then an S grid, which has a bunch of cells and goes up on the y-axis 200 times. For the lines itself, they're just S polygon, and then I just drew random lines all the way down. I didn't vary it too much because it looked a bit jarring if it was too much difference. And then I made an instance of it, which is just the exact same thing, except I did the same trick with the length and position. So for this line, let me go to the middle and see if I can see it. So it just follows it with the same path, and then you just keyframe the position. I have it merged into two different places with two different renders. One of them renders just the lines and the background graph, and then the other one renders just these dots. Because for the dots itself, I wanted to add a flicker, an edge glow, and a glow. The edge glow is also from Universe, but my alternative way would just be something like edge detect, and then maybe a glow, and then mask it so that it's only on the outside, or just glow with a mask on the outside. Either way works. You honestly can't see too much of it once you're actually looking at the final result, because the next thing I added was the background itself, which is just, again, fast noise scaled down on the Y. So it makes it look stretched speed lines. And then the next one, I added more speed lines, only on the outside though. So this one is speed lines, and then I masked it so that's only on the sides. So there's two rectangles on both sides. And then I have a distort chroma, which is, I think this is a Sapphire plugin to make it look like this. My alternative would be something like color corrector wheel, and all of them just have like random masks throughout the entire thing just to make it look more trippy. But that just adds this small effect on the sides like this. And then the last thing was the effects here. It's just a lens distortion and then a color corrector to make it go rainbow. So you just keyframe the tint and it'll do that. And then of course, there's also the global effects, and these way more convincing. It's just the same things I had before. It's the dehaze, camera shake, chromatic aberration, which it's Universe, but I don't think there's a built-in. Yeah, there isn't a built-in one, but it's basically just like RGB shift, which there's probably tutorials on out there. And then a defocus for that I'm actually not using at the moment because I only used it over here. A vignette, light rays at the center, and then a glow, and another glow. All this makes it way better looking in my opinion. That's that part. This section over here, I wanted to do like a breakdown of another video that I did. I think I have to figure that out first. So let me just get to the other one. Okay, that's a lot of red. Okay, so I'm just gonna copy this and then go over to my project, and then I'm gonna paste it. And then so in this, I'm just gonna fix everything. There's a lot of font errors. So let me just do that real quick. Okay, cool, I finally got it fixed. So all the animations are completely broken because for some reason it said 100,000 frames. This is part of the tore up edit I did a while ago. I'm just gonna briefly explain what all this is. This one is just a star shape with 3 points. Rendered image plane, it looks like this, and then an merge that controls the height of it, and then there's 3 of them all together, and these are all distance apart, like here, and then it renders into its separate thing, which is just this, with a highlight, flicker addition, a glow that merges with the other part, which is just the text. And then the text itself is just a text 3D with, I believe, I keyframed random movements for each one of these. So these are all manually keyframed for which direction it exploded. I had a replace material, which is just a gold bump, which comes with DaVinci Resolve. So gold, this one, gold bump. I removed a bunch of things inside. So it's just this part. I also removed the thing that made it yellow. It has a, I guess, more bluish hue to it. So that's that part with all the text. And then I also had other text behind it, which is just this, which are the lyrics to the other one. I had the same material and then transformed it so that it's at the correct spot and then merged it all together. And then I think this last thing, yeah, the particles is just text randomized. It's a text scramble and it'll just make it random text. This goes into the P emitter, which takes in this object and then emits it as a particle. I have a friction node to make it slow down inside this vortex a bit. This particle force makes it push backwards and then have a vortex that makes it spin. And then it renders it all together and merges it in. My idea now is that I want to transition with another similar to this thing. Instead of going down, I want it to come up like an arrow from here. So like one of these arrows, I want it to go up this way and then have the camera be maybe something like rotated and up close to one of the arrows, and then it would zoom out to be this entire frame. So I think it'll make more sense once I actually do it. So I'm just gonna get started on that. Okay, so this part I spent so much time trying to get this to work, but it just did not go the way I wanted it to go. If you remember what my storyboard was originally, I wanted to rotate around the edit itself and then have the edit sort of split apart into different sections, like maybe show the text here and then text in front of the background and then maybe the glow in front of the text and everything. But this just did not work at all. So I had to scrap the entire thing, but you'll see what I tried to do and then how it completely failed. Okay, this looks so bad. This looks so bad. Oh my god. Instead of doing whatever this is. So what I was trying to do is I had the normal triangle and then I rendered it into a image planes, but I wanted to layer the different effects on it. So I also had the highlight itself, the flicker, and then the glow, and then merge it together behind each other. But this does not look, this looks so weird. And I have no idea how I would fix this. So instead of doing whatever this is, I'm gonna pivot, and instead of how I did it here, where it rotates around, I'm just not gonna rotate at all. So on every beat here, there's 4 beats there, so on each beat, I'm just gonna take away like an adjustment layer or something like that. Eventually it'll get to the viewport, and then maybe I can transition that to the next part. But yeah, this is not it. Oh my god. Okay, yeah, this is way better now. Instead of what I had originally, where I was trying to do some 3D space, whatever, on every beat over here, I cut into like a different type of background. From here to here, I cut with the arrows and then had a green edge detect around everything else. And then on this cut, I removed the background, added the grid on the ground, and then made the shape outline wireframe. On the next cut, I added another one. And then on the last cut, I zoomed out and added the top right thing that you see when you're editing. For this part, let me just do this. So this one has a lot of different layers, but most of it's just what I took originally from my previous tore up edit. But this one, the background is really simple. It's just this color merged into here, an ellipse on this side, which is black, and then another ellipse, which is like a lighter teal over here. And then I have a flicker addition and then the media out. So that's the background. It's really simple. The next thing is the main body of it. So everything is the same as my previous, except the camera movement I modified a little bit. But the main thing is on top of this, for my transition in, I added this one arrow, which is also just the star render, but in this merge, I added a shape, which is just a plane that's like really long. And then I merged it together over here with another camera movement like this. And then these are the same highlights that I had, makes it glow more. It's actually not too visible here. I didn't want it to be too bright. The reduced highlight helps the glow not be too strong either. And then the camera over here is, again, it's really simple. It's just keyframed out. So it goes in like this and then moves away to have this come in and then leave the scene in the bottom. It's on its side and rotated because this was originally what I had. I just copied and pasted the same adjustment clip, deleted everything else, and then moved the camera itself like so. And then this is all just keyframe. So if you are trying to copy, it's really just messing with the camera movement for this. And then the next parts on the cut, how I made this glow effect over here is this part is all the same thing, just the background. I created this gizmo macro, which is just a green arrow, the rod, a red arrow with the rod, and then a blue arrow with the rod all merged together to make this. And this is just all simple shapes that you can make together. I turned it into macro so I can copy and paste it around easily. I connected the Y transform into this merged keyframe over here. So each of these are all connected. So then when it's rendered out, each of these have its individual gizmos rendered on top of it. And the camera is also the same. I didn't change anything to it. It's just the same part over here where it's slowly zooming out. For the text merge over here, all I changed was in this render, I added a edge detect on top of it, a green edge detect with, so originally it's RGB edges, but if you change it to grayscale edges, it would look green. For the next part, it's still same edge detect. Everything up to here is all the same, but I added a outline of the red particle system that shows up when you click on the P emitter. So I wanted to replicate this, but there's no easy way to have this actually be rendered with the camera. So what I did instead is I had an ICO object with wireframe, and then I added another one on top of it to make it a little more overlapped and visible. I had to create another instance of these three objects, the merge, camera, and render. So I made another instance over here of the same thing because I wanted to add in erode dilate on top. So what that does is if you don't have it, it's very thin, and then I'm also only on quarter quality. So if I'm on full quality, it's even thinner and even less visible. Yeah, so look how thin that is. It's almost not visible in full resolution. What I added was just an erode dilate so that it would basically thicken the edges a bit. Okay, I just crashed trying to showcase what I did. Okay, for the next part, it's the exact same thing. Instead of just these ICO shapes over here, I also added, let me see. So these are the ICOs over here. And I added just a random blue shape over here that spins, and another box that it's supposed to encompass these texts over here. I just added the box on top of it just to add some more effect. So that's this part. And then the next part, all it is just this transform that zooms it out a bit, and then I copied the text over here so that it is the same text as this, and then I merged in the background the KAS texture. So when you search up checker and then you already have the KAS textures installed, these show up over here. Okay, on to the effects. I had two separate adjustment layers for this, one for the global effects and the one for the local effects. So for this one, it's just a lens distortion to make it lens distorted, but it makes this, it has a bendy look right now, like a TV. So then I added a grain on top of it. It's just lens distorted and then a grain on top of it with a decent bit of power actually. Okay, so this damage TV effect is from Boros Effects, but there's also other options. You can use this TV option, I believe. So actually that's not that great. I think is analog damage better? Yeah, I think analog damage, you can make it do similar things over here. I was just messing around with it and it automatically has these presets I liked. But if you use analog damage, you can change it with anything else actually, like an old VHS, security camera. I think security camera is probably closest to this. So it looks like this originally. You can change the, let me see, V-hold. Yeah, you can just change the V-hold to make it go up and down, sort of like how Boros Effects does it. I cut it properly so that when it starts, it's over here and then scrolls down one and then it uncut. This is all just animating the blend. I had a camera shake that happens on every beat over here. So this is just mostly the tilt amplitude, which is up and down. And then on each beat, it just hits and then shakes the camera a little bit. And then finally, global effects is the same as effects as before. I just re-added the edge detect. Here's the edge detect, the dehaze. There's a camera shake, chromatic blur, or RGB shift. I have a defocus on some beat drops. The vignette, glow, another glow with, again, only appear on some of the beat drops. Yeah, that's pretty much all this is. And then I originally tried to have stop motion effect on everything. It didn't seem to work properly. So I had to move it all into a compound clip and then render it out using render in place, and then added stop motion manually on top of it. I just added this so it repeats every 3 frames. So instead of 60 FPS, it's 20 FPS. So when you play it, So that's this part of it. It took way longer than I expected because, again, I was trying something else originally, and then that turned out to be terrible. So I had to scrap everything, start over. And then I think this part took 2.5 hours total working time. Yeah. So this part is all just copied from the intro part of the video. So if you want to go back to that timestamp, you can just copy everything and then it'll be the exact same thing, except the camera movement is slightly different where I just zoom out and then zoom back in. Another difference is that the background, instead of being the clips, is just a fast noise with a mosaic blur and a universe glitch node. You can also use the digital glitch that comes in with DaVinci Resolve. The next thing here, I was originally going to have the film wheels break apart, but I eventually just settled with using a duplicate 3D node and then having it be offset in position and size. So you can see that each of the film wheels are copied about 3 times to the left and right of it. So this is all just messing with duplicate 3D. A couple different things I gotta fix up on. First thing is that this transition when going in is way too fast. Second thing is these tape recorder things in the back are not synced up at all. Third thing, these gizmos in the front, I wanted them to go forward and then some sort of flash or glow to make it look like it's the 3D viewer, but it didn't work out, so I might just remove them. And then this part's not finished. All right, so I realized that I actually didn't explain it in the video. I'm just gonna go through it real quick. So taking apart these layers, the first one down here is the background. So going into the background here, it is pretty simple once you break it down. So we have the merge that goes in, which is just a red background, and then another background, slightly darker red, merged into it with a soft edge ellipse. And then we have a fast noise with these settings, with the detail cranked all the way up. And then these are the colors. And this adds a little bit more texture to it. We have another fast noise here with the same colors as the previous one. I did use the same technique where the Y scale is turned all the way down and the seed rate turned all the way up to make it have like the speed lines. But I just added it to have a little bit more texture on the actual background itself. And then we have a mosaic blur. And then this just makes it slightly more glitchy looking, and then a universe glitch node. And of course, you can always just use the same built-in one in DaVinci Resolve called Digital Glitch in the Effects Templates panel, and then this would achieve pretty much the same result. So that is the background, and the next part is all copied over from the intro segment of this edit. So if you remember, all the way at the beginning, I just copied the exact same adjustment clip and then moved it over to the end. And then inside this adjustment clip, everything is also mostly the same. Let me clean it up real quick. Hopefully it's a bit more cleaned up. So this entire segment here is all the same part with these film wheels. The only thing I changed was I merged a gizmo on top of it so that this gizmo, as I showcased before, it's just the arrow, the rod, another arrow rod, and another arrow with a rod. And then this all is just a bunch of different shapes merged together. So I just merged the gizmo shape on top of the extruded film wheel. The next new thing is a duplicate. And then this duplicate is just slightly smaller scale, change the offsets a little bit to have it show up behind. And then the keyframes are mainly on the rotation itself. So if I show this over here, all it does is when the animation starts, I wanted to have it shift to the left side really quickly and then showcase like a cool duplication effect. If I play through this, it's gonna slowly move over to the left side like so. These keyframes, all it does is just it shifts it from here, from the center of it to the left side. And this duplicate, it just pivots the rotation around the center of it. So originally it's like this, and then with one copy of it, I can move it all the way to the other side with a rotation of 180 on the Y. This part is all just the film wheel part. And then instead of merging it into this main scene over here, I merged it into a different instance of it. I wanted to add an edge detect later. And then this instance is all just a copy of these 6 nodes. So these 6 nodes, I just copied and then Control-Shift-V over here to create an instance. So it has the exact same scene and camera layout. And then I wanted an edge detect over here so that very occasionally on the beats, it would make sort of the selecting effect that it has in the editor. So for example, if I have something like this, there's a green border to it when I want to select something like this. So I just added the edge detect to sort of mock that effect as well. So this gets merged in. And then the rest of it is all exactly the same. This part is all the original 3D scene as I showed in the intro part of the edit. The same thing with this is also part of the original 3D scene. I have everything merged together. This is the main body of the final verse. As I explained in the time lapse, I used the same trick here where this was originally the entire segment of it, but I chopped it up here and then added more to it. In here, the only thing that's changed, I got rid of the waveform over here. So instead of the waveform going into this image plane over here, it's now white because there's no input anymore. That's the only thing that's changed. And then I also, on the edge detect, I added one more beat hit over here. That's the only difference between this part and then the next part. The next segment, I removed a lot more things. So all the shapes are gone, and then the entire image plane for the audio waveform is also gone. Now there's only the film wheels, the floor, and the original media in itself. And one more over here, I completely removed the floor and the reflection entirely. It's just the cogwheels and then the original media in. This is all this part, which is going into the final scene. And the next thing I added, this is the same thing I used in this verse. So it's the same thing over here, where in the elements, I made my own macro of this node shape, and I just moved it around with DVE nodes. So if I go into this adjustment layer, just to showcase it again, so it's just this rectangle over here with a line at the bottom, and then I add an outline to it, add the text on top, and then add the other shapes, which is just a S star with 3 points, and this is also an S star with 3 points, and this is just a rectangle. So all that is merged together along with an outline for each of them, and then after it's all done, there's a drop shadow. So that's just the layout of these nodes, and then these are all moved around with DVE nodes. I just did random positions, random rotations, and random movement. There's not really any pattern to them. I just made it sort of float around for a bit. With the center node, I also had these polylines that follow these DVE nodes. With the center one on the DVE one, I can go over here with the same XY path as before, right click, connect to path one. So then this is the path one that is following is this one. And then all of these are all following the individual DVE center animations. So that is now merged into here. The next thing is this part, which is the transition in. So it zooms in and then rotates left. And then I want to mirror that transition so that instead of going into it, I want to start far and then zoom in. So you want to follow the exact same motion. And this is why I also rotate counterclockwise as well. So this is rotating counterclockwise and it continues rotating counterclockwise. So then these keyframes are also really simple. It's just in transform that's zoomed out and then slowly goes in, and another dent that's dented outwards and then slowly goes back to normal. Finally, the global effects. These are the exact same global effects as in the intro part of the video. So I'll just select them real quick and then showcase. We have the edge detect, dehaze, camera shake, chromatic aberration, dent, vignette, light rays, glow, and another glow. And then most of these keyframes are all on the beat hit itself, such as this glow, this shake, and this edge detect. So all this here is on the beat itself. That's what these spikes are. I'm gonna match cut whatever the shape is and then animate it like that. So when it comes in over here, everything's moving downwards and maybe it spins around, goes up, and then drops down to another match cut to my logo. I think best bet would just be to remove it. Okay, I was pretty stuck on what to do, so I was looking at ST Cubing's video for inspiration, and I think this is pretty similar to what I want to do. So I think it's just this part right here. The background comes in, there's a circle, goes around, and then a drop. So that's pretty similar to what I want to do actually. I was doing some testing with my own, and I was thinking maybe I should bring back these. Let me just start doing things and then see what happens. The first thing I'm doing right now is I'm taking the original background that I built before, which is just these random shapes and then blur, and then it goes into this main merge over here, which is the background, and then it goes into this multi-merge, which I'm going to do stuff with the shape later. This is the same shape that I took from the other scene as well for right here. It's just the one extruded, so I just copied this over. With this merge, I'm merging it into another merge, which is again this same background, but this time it has a brightness level of 0.3, and then I have an ellipse mask on top of it so that the foreground is masked along with this background and the darker background in the back. I was thinking this is gonna look better because I was looking at how ST Cubing does it, and then for his, the entire background collapses in. So I think that's what sells the effect. What I'm going to do now is when it's over here, it's gonna be the entire screen, and then once it gets here, it's going to be half the screen or all the way down to its smaller size. So let's just say around here, and then I will do this. And the next thing is I'm going to have these be transform, move it left like this, and then this size. Okay, there we go. Actually, I need another S transform. And then this time, when I rotate around, it rotates all of them together. I'll also keyframe this at the same time to make it look like, I don't know, wheel spinning or something. I should have made it way smaller. So I'm just gonna keep going back and forth just to make sure it matches as close as possible. I want to rotate it a lot here, a bunch. Do this, and I also want to gradient extrapolate here because to keep it spinning, so. With this other transform, I want to rotate it around each other. So I'm just doing random for now and refining later. Something like that. Okay. Also keyframe this. Here maybe this. I don't know. So I end up not talking too much after this, but it's a lot of just trial and error with the keyframes, trying to get all the transforms right so that it flows well. So like as I'm doing here, I'm trying to have the two wheels both condensed together and then both drop down at the same time, but it was a lot of tinkering with the keyframes and then trying to get everything to work properly together. My goal is just to have the two wheels sort of spin around each other and then drop down together. I also tried messing around with making it rainbow color because it still looked a bit off to me, but I couldn't figure out why. I also added a bunch of different transforms on the outside to try to make it flow a little better. I also used the polygons again and ellipses with the same position and length technique to guide the audience's eyes around in the circle and then also drop down at the same time. So I just copied and pasted a lot of polygons and ellipses on the outside as well. This final part, it ended up being a little more complicated than I'd hoped. How this works here is you saw me try to mess around with the transforms and the duplicates. So this is what it eventually came out to. What each of these transforms are. This one, all it does is it makes it go out and back in because the second transform over here is the one that controls where around the circle's at. So for this transform, the X offset slightly goes out and then back in, and then the rotation is fast and then slows down. And the second transform is just rotating the entire thing. So the second transform's pivot is going to be at the center. So when you rotate it's going to be around the center. It starts over here, spins really fast around, and then drops down because of the first transform. So if you didn't have this transform, all it will do is just rotate really fast. So both of these transforms come together to create this go around motion and then drops down. And then this duplicate, I also keyframe the Z rotation over here, that both of them eventually come together at the end. So it makes this copy of the film wheel go around back to Z rotation 0 and then meet up with the original film wheel. So that is this merge. And then I also added back the 3D scene because I was trying it out with just the normal colors, but it didn't seem to look right to me because of how it was cutting from the previous adjustment layer. So and then I just added back the exact same KS Chrome Reflect material here into the extrude. This is all copied from the previous scene, and then I just render it out directly with a merge with these other elements over here. So what this does over here is each of these are ellipses, but I keyframe the position and length so that this one itself goes really fast around in a circle. I feel like it helps it become less jarring that these are spinning around this fast. So I copied it again and then changed the width so that it is on the outside now. So both of these are spinning the same way. And then I merge it together over here. I also have a hue that just changes everything to yellow. You don't need this. I kept it over because I was trying to do stuff with making it rainbow colored before, but it didn't seem to work. It's there, but it's not really needed. The next thing over here is this transform where it just goes down and then up a bit. The reason I started going down is because of the previous scene. So the previous scene, it drops down. I want to continue this motion and have it drop down as well, and then slowly go back up to the center. So that is why I have this transform here with these keyframes. And then I have another merge, and this is with the background, which is the same background as before, but I also have a merge with this rectangle here. All this does is it also helps guide the user's eyes. I also copied this from SD cubing. And then the main keyframe here is the angle, so it spins around one full rotation. And then I animated the width so that it quickly goes in and then quickly goes out when the animation finishes. And one more thing over here is I actually took a copy of these ellipses down here. So these ones, I took a copy of them and put it into this brightness over here. It's just the exact same thing over here, scaled up slightly. So in this final animation, there's 4 lines total on the outside plus this rectangle. All right, next thing is this merge over here. What this contains is this polygon, which is simply just this line over here. It starts slow and then speeds up as it goes down. But the main thing is that I duplicated it so that it's on both sides. This duplicate is just X size of -1 so that it mirrors on the other side. And then another duplicate that copies it 3 more times with a slightly bigger size. So now there's 6 total polygons all going down. And then we mask it, add a glow effect with these settings over here, and then finally merge it in. Last couple things we add is a small lens distortion, light rays. It's peaked when these film wheels go all the way up at the top, just to add some God ray effect, and then a final transition that zooms out and then zooms back in quickly. So this is everything that's going into this merge in the foreground. But we have a mask over here that at the last couple frames of it, it's shrinking down like it's ending on this center point so that we can have a good match cut into the next frame, which is my logo falling down. And here is the final edit. So that's about it. I know there was a lot of things to cover, especially since this was my first time doing a walkthrough, but I'm really trying to aim it towards more intermediate motion graphics editors. My goal isn't really for you to try to copy this frame by frame, but instead as a valuable resource you could use to cherry pick specific techniques or effects and then apply them to your own projects and videos. With that being said, if there was anything unclear or something I missed, please let me know in the comments and I will do my best to answer. And of course, thank you so much for watching.